Now. Okay, perfect. Hey everyone, thank you again. I'm going to start our presentation now. Let's see. Okay. Doo-doo. Okie dokie. Here we go. Can everyone see everything okay? Let's go down. Controls. Hopefully everyone can see everything okay. Uh, okay, perfect. Awesome. Okie dokie. Sorry, guys. Computer troubles. Okay, perfect. Awesome. So if everyone can sign in real quick by scanning this QR code, that would be amazing. So I will wait a couple seconds for that. Do, 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 do. Okay. Okay, sweet. So, okay. So today we're going to be covering how to run an indie production. Yay! Sweet. So, getting started. The fun stuff, the fun stuff. So you've been brought onto a production. So for the pipelines, they vary drastically from production to production, depending on mediums, depending on your team and whatnot. So on indie productions, the role of a producer is always crucial for a successful film. Producers need to keep up the morale without a class structure. So you have to be structuring things yourself, and you have to set up organization without professor guidance. So it's a lot of you being the guide, you helping everyone else in the production, basically. And so you need to know the film pipeline before you're going into filmmaking or joining an indie production as a producer. So because there's no professors or industry folks who are going to be telling you how things are going to go. You need to kind of already know that, or you need to do your research before you go and join one. That's always recommended, of course. And you, as the producer, typically won't be doing artistic roles unless you are overlapping into those areas. So depending on how big a team is, if it's a smaller team, sometimes you are more likely to sorry, give me one second. Sometimes you're more likely to have those artistic roles. Um, but if it's a bigger team, you're likely going to be just doing the scheduling, just your producer role task that we went over in our first meeting this year. And yeah, let's see. So a producer does not equal a director. So we kind of went over this before in a meeting prior to this, but I kind of wanted to go over again just because it's important for everybody to know that there's a difference between a producer and a director. So a producer is overseeing the vision of the film organizationally, which diverts from a director who's organizing and overseeing the vision of or no, they're overseeing the vision of a film artistically. So you're the organizer, they're the artist. Most always that is usually the way it goes. And both sides of the equation are crucial always. So a producer is working with a director to make sure their story is being brought to life in the way that they want, and a director is working with the producer to make sure a film can be accomplished within the established timeline, the budget, and the crew size. So a director sometimes will put out really big ideas, and the producer sometimes has to be the one who draws it back and draws a line in the sand of what we can and can't do in the time we have, with the budget we have, and the size of the crew that we have. So communicating, those two people need to communicate, or teams need to communicate with each other to make sure a film is successful. So a producer communicates with the crew to ensure that they know where to find the assets they need to work, and they know their deadlines and know where to turn things in. That's always crucial. So again, a producer is like a guide for the workers and for people who are working on the film. They're showing me if somebody has a question on where to find something or needs to know how needs a tutorial for how to do something in the film's vision, in the film's whatever, a producer is able to show them that or provide that for them. And a director guides the leads and crew to ensure their work is leading the film to the quality and standard that they're looking for. So, a director is somebody who's like, this doesn't quite meet my standards. This isn't what we're looking like. This isn't the artistic vision of the film. I need this to be redone. And then for a producer, they give out assignments to the crew. So a director is like, this is what we need in pre-production, production, whatever. And a producer is the one dealing out those tasks to people. And a director is always makes the typically always makes the final call on artistic issues or decisions that might arise. A producer manages spreadsheets, a timeline and organization of a project, and a director ensures that the core of the story is being conveyed in the final film. So again, a director is making sure that that story is what they envisioned to begin with. And yeah, so some soft skills that indie producers need when going onto a production. So quick and clear communication. You're able to be kind, considerate, and you can clearly explain things without confusing people. You're able to word things in a way that isn't again that isn't confusing. If somebody who wants to be producer or whatever for an indie production has to have organizational skills, time management skills. Empathy and kindness is always important. You're going to have to empathize with people's issues, what might be going on in everyone's lives. It has to be motivated. So you have to be motivated with your work and with the project that you're on to complete it. And producer is also willing to learn. You're willing to change things up. You're willing to listen to people and take their thoughts and feelings or whatever into consideration before making decisions, before whatnot, and open to feedback always. A producer isn't like the hard judge. They are also talking with people. It's a two-way street with most everything. It's not the big boss man. Sometimes you have to be the big boss man, but again, talking with people, communicating, especially on small projects. And then things to consider for your film. So here's a list of things to first consider. So how long is your film going to be? The longer the film, the harder it is going to be to accomplish. That's just a given. Who will you be recruiting to work on the film? Are you going to be recruiting other SCAD students or students outside of SCAD, non-students? How are you going to find those people? What places are you going to search for those people, and how you're going to word that intro to asking for their help, especially that is also hard if you don't have if you're not paying them. So you have to find people who have free time and you have to have a really good idea, unless it's a student who's like, I just want to be on a production. I just want to do something. But having a good story and something that excites people will get people to be part of your story and production, even when you're not paying them, because they're just like, oh, this is so exciting. Like, of course I'm going to help. Of course I want to be a part of it. So that's always important. How are you going to be running this production? Is this going to be an in-person thing? Is this going to be over Discord? Is this going to be in person and over Zoom, whatnot? Understanding the different platforms. You're not using also not using a bunch of different platforms. Choosing a couple platforms that you're going to use. So like don't have a Discord and a Slack. Choose Discord or Slack when you're running production, just so it doesn't get confusing and people are like, oh my gosh, there's so much to look at. There's way too many channels. I don't even know where to find anything. That will confuse people. How will you be paying your artists? So if you're going to be paying people, do you need a Kickstarter or GoFundMe for your project? How are you going to set that up? Setting up the budgeting sheets to handle these funds. So making sure that you as a producer are able to understand budgeting and being able to figure out the sheets for that, which is it's in its own way. I mean, it's a whole other world a little bit with like it takes some mathematics at times, but it's always fun. It's always fun to you can always make fake things too. You can like make fake budget stuff and go for it, make your own spreadsheets and work from there. You don't have to be like, I have to actually experience this to learn. Like you can fake things and learn from that and make your own sheets and whatnot. You know how it is. So how will you market your film? So that's another crucial step for getting your work in front of people. How are you going to market this? Are you going to go on the side of the street and whatnot in Savannah or whatnot and make a have like are you going to put flyers up? What are you going to do? How are you going to market this? Are you going to go online? Do you want to pay for like ad space on Instagram to promote your film or your ideas? Those are also important things to think about when you're starting or when you're you're wanting to make a film, start an indie production. So what is your goal for your film after it's finished? Is it going to go straight to YouTube? Do you want to take it on a festival track? And then you're going to need a media package for that. Typically, you're going to have to look into that. And yeah, you're going to have to apply for those things. And sometimes that costs money and whatnot. So yeah, it's always a good idea to think about that before you start. So, as a statement, 2D animation is easier to produce independently than 3D stop motion or hybrid mediums. So we'll kind of go into that here. So for the 2D pipeline, the pros are it's very easy to access typical software that's used in 2D productions. It's not typically for that software. Some people use stuff that's completely free. It's not you're not using a bunch of different software typically. It's just easier to manage for 2D pipelines. And the knowledge to create and produce 2D is more widely known and accessible. Just yeah, that's a lot of like we'll go into like how that differs from 3D, but understanding and learning 2D it is typically easier to do outside of like schooling and all that whilst 3D, learning 3D. Typically, people go to school for that because it's hard to learn on your own. Um, that may change over the years that, as there's more classes and online internet resources that are easy to access or have become more accessible. So it's just, yeah, it's a shifting environment. But yeah, there's a huge market for 2D work, obviously. Most mainstream indies are 2D, as we see these examples down below. You're gonna see, yeah, there's tons of 2D work. Really cool 2D indie work. And it would be easy to crew up for a 2D production in comparison to other mediums. Again, because you have a wider uh breadth, I think that's the word, a wider amount of people, a bigger amount of people who are more likely to know 2D and how to do that. You're going to have it might be easier to crew it will be probably easier to crew up than like a stop mo or a 3D project. But the cons are it's hard to keep characters on model without skilled animators. So it's harder to sometimes find those skilled animators who are willing to be on your project, especially if they're not being paid. And many other films are 2D. So creating something unique to stand out can be difficult. That sometimes that comes with style. Like some people get sick of the same style over and over and whatnot, or like the same ideas. Like sometimes it becomes, people have seen it already and they're like, okay. I'd say like, but a really good example is Knights of Guinevere is actually like a really cool new indie 2D film or sorry, series that's happening. It was just beautiful, but that one was just really unique. And sometimes it's hard to do that though. It's hard to get unique ideas out there. And for the 3D pipeline, the pros are there's also a market for 3D indie, although it's less common medium for indies to take. But I feel like in the recent years, we've seen like a uptick of 3D indie projects, which is really exciting. Another pro is it's easy to keep characters on model and your art style true to form. Here's some examples below of some 3D indie films or shorts. Some of these are series, some of these are just yeah, most actually all these are series. But I love Spice Frontier by Steamroller. That was awesome. If you haven't checked that out, you should definitely check it out. But these are amazing. And cons are it's much harder to access certain 3D software without student licenses. Again, that will likely cost more money. Typically with 3D indie projects, it costs more money to do because you need to figure out licensing, all that and whatnot. It's hard to find technical people too. It's really hard to find like really good rigging people or riggers and look development people, etc. That's sometimes that is really hard to find. Another con is you can encounter many technical issues without dedicated people to solve them. So if you don't have somebody who's willing to take the time to solve these issues, then it's going to affect your project. And then rendering locally can take ages unless you're using the SCAD's render farm. But if you're no longer a part of SCAD, or you don't have access to the render farm, you kind of want to know, how am I going to render these without this taking ages? Or what can we do to shorten the render time? Or how will this affect my project? If my film or whatever is really long, do I need to shorten it so I'm not dealing with so I can meet a deadline? It's always take those things into account. And then stop motion pipeline. So this one's fun. So the pros are very few indies are stop mo, so this would be incredibly unique. Stop mo medium immediately adds tons of charm to any film, of course. It's beautiful, beautiful medium. And the cons are it's very difficult to run remotely because of the physical nature of the medium. That's just how it goes. And it's very expensive to pay for sets, character models, general construction, etc., for very big projects. And since it's such a niche medium, it's very hard to find a crew and a dedicated crew. Which is yeah, that's just the facts. And some examples below are just some indie stop motion here. We have like Robert Morgan stuff. We have Mad God over here. It's kind of funny. There is a niche of indie horror stop motion. That's personally my favorites. I love that stuff. So there is a weird niche for that I've noticed. And Robert Morgan, I followed him for a long time, and he was his stop motion YouTube shorts and his short films. They're incredible. And he recently just produced produced and directed. I think he directed a horror film called Stop Motion, which was really good. So it's always interesting to see these artists grow from an indie creator as a small indie creator and how far they can grow. So again, it's sometimes it's about finding your niche with things. And then the hybrid pipeline. So very, very few indies are hybrid. So this would be incredibly unique. If wanting to have an experimental animation or visuals in your film, hybrid allows for that, for great flexibility for that. The cons are that hybrid pipelines are very complex and you would need to super clearly outline each step of the process. And a producer needs complete understanding of how the film will work. And depending on which programs you want to use, it could be expensive without student licenses. So you have to keep that into account. And it's also harder to gather a crew for hybrids because some people aren't willing to, are like, I don't want to work with that. I want to just be part of a 2D or 3D thing. I don't want to deal with the issues that come with merging those two together. And you just need very skilled people for this, but it is just very, very unique. And I think it's a great medium for experimental animation, like experimental films. I think that could be really cool if more people did that. And setting up your production, the fun stuff. So, crucial things to have: a production sheet, always, a means of communication with your crew, of course, a timeline, an updated list of your crew's names, contact info, portfolio, etc., a system to hold crew accountable for deadlines or two deadlines, whether that's ShotGrid, Flow, whatever, a singular location for artists to turn in their assets, Dropbox, Google Drive, whatnot, iDrive if you're a SCAD student at the time, a singular location with links to every asset or document your crew will need to do their job, and a way to give out crew assignments, a timed animatic with scratch audio and soundtrack that will never be touched past pre-production. That is a big, big never. I From my experience being on projects myself, like having that animatic being done and not being touched past pre-production is huge because when you're making changes after pre-production, it slows everything down. People get upset, people get demotivated. Again, having that sorted out before you move on and not touching it is a big it's an important thing to have. And production guides, so guides for backgrounds and map painting, for animation, for compositing. Again, another one of a producer's jobs is to be making those guides typically for, they'll work with a director to be like, what's your vision? What's your references? How do you want this drawn? How do you want this character to look? What, or give me a bunch of turnarounds, whatever. I'm going to compile them all in a document or Google Drive or Google Slide, whatever. So I have a guide for your artist to work from. At least that's what I do as on when I'm producing or whatnot. General organization and understanding of the pipelines. So again, like understanding how long things take. That's another thing. One of the hardest parts. I'm a tech major or a VFX, whatever. I still call myself tech, and I'm currently producing on a indie 2D film, and I have not really touched 2D, and so having to learn how long things take for people who are 2D animators was a big it was a big change, and I was like, I've never really thought about this. So I had to work with the director, or I'm still working with the director to understand how long will this take, do you think? How long do you need this to take? Blah 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 blah. So again, it's not even if you're two, even if it's vice versa, and you're 2D and you want to produce for a 3D film, it's not impossible. Don't take that leap. Do it if you have the chance to do it. But just talk with a director and do your research, or talk with your professors, to understand like how long things will take, and if you're not used to, or if you haven't done that yourself. So that's a bit of that's a little bit there, bit of knowledge. So keep this triangle in mind when you're setting up your timeline. So this is the epic triangle. So we have quality up here, we have budget down here, and we have time over here on the right. So between budget and quality is looks great and good price, long wait, or quality and time, it looks great, short wait, expensive, and budget and time, inexpensive, short wait, low quality. So you have to keep this in mind when you're setting up your timeline for things. So again, you have to balance quality. You have to balance these things. You have to balance the quality with the budget and time. And sometimes it's I understand with certain again in my experience being on projects, uh it's hard to not when you're past pre-production and you're like, oh, I really want to change something, or the story doesn't hit right. Sometimes it's about finishing the project. And sometimes you do have to cut certain quality, like some quality to projects in order to meet deadlines. Again, it all has to do with with the project you're on and the vision. So but typically as a producer, you're sometimes you have to be the bad guy and be like, I get that you want to change these things. I get that you want to redo this, whatever, but we don't have the time for it. We don't have the budget for it. So we need to get this finished in order, because a good film is also a finished film. That's my favorite quote. Anyways, here's an example of a short film called Arcade. This is a 2D short film, and this is their production pipeline. After this, I'm also going to show a 3D productions pipeline, or not really pipeline, but our like production sheet and our like scheduling stuff. I'll kind of just show that to showcase that, just because I want there to be a 2D example and a 3D example. Yeah. So again, this is with the little text down here. This is an example of a pipeline. It's just how this film was run, but it's not the end all be all of every indie production. Just because this example did this, you do not have to do that. You do not have to use the same setup that they did. Every production is different. Things are going to be different. People are going to use different whatever, yeah. And so Arcade, I'm not going to play it, but Again, these slides will be posted. You can check it out later, but the runtime is 7 minutes and 42 seconds. The medium is 2D. The timeline started May 2022 and ended end of May 2023. The crew size was 85 people. Majority were from SCAD, some across the world from Ireland, UK, Indiana, Spain. It was completely volunteer based, so people were not being paid. Again, because yeah, people, if it's a good project, people will want to join without being paid. And the production sheet. Yay! So the crew production sheet. Beautiful. So here, over here, you see we have the shots. Down here, we have the pictures of the shots, a description, the background number, the layout artist, the render artist, rough sketch, final line, color blocking, final render. So you'll have these. This is just an example of a setup. You'll have like the names of those artists in there. You'll have the if it's finished, unfinished, in the process, polishing, whatnot. You can check those or whatever. Of course, this was posted after everything was finished, so all of these are green. And yeah, so this is an example of how to set that up with the storyboards and the pictures. And production sheet organization, there's the introduction, the concepts, the background, the animation, the compositing. So this is just like different tabs you'd have on this Google Sheet to organize things. So each tab separates a different stage of the pipeline that needs to be tracked. So you might not need to track every single step like sound design or soundtrack. Sometimes that just doesn't need to be, it's not that big deal. You don't need to track that. But it's good for the main parts of 2D animation to have a tab for each of those, like concepts, backgrounds, animation, compositing. Those are very important. And yeah. So oh yeah, here's a breakdown of it. I totally just did this, but here's another breakdown of what we just saw. So we have again the shot number, a screenshot of the final storyboard from the animatic, a description of what happens in the shot, background number, which is different from shot number, and the background layout artist that draws the background, the render artist, and yes, and the progress drop downs. So sorry, I totally just did this a second ago, but just another like um we just did it. We just went over again just to make sure you knew. And yeah, so the Discord. So here's how they organize their Discord. So we have the events tab up here. So it creates reminders for any meetings, the general categories. So any topic of conversations that's like introducing crew, stuff that's off topic, general for anything, questions, a little welcome thing, and welcome, usually in welcome, you kind of show like what are we about? What are we doing? Where can you find stuff? And in the important tab or the important category that allows for crew to find the most important elements of production. So the assignments, the links, announcements, etc. You can find everything in there. And then in the 2D animation or artistic, whatever, artistic categories, it separates different steps of the pipeline to help crews organize and find posts that they're looking for. So here we have like the resources, just a general chat for animation, 2D animation work in progress, cleanup work in progress, color animation, FX work in progress. Very cool. So Discord roles show a clear hierarchy so that the crew members know who to reach out for to help. That's another important thing. Yeah, when you're setting up if you're doing Discord, you can assign people those roles. So you're like, oh, so this is the lead, this is the producer, this is a rough animator, that's a compositor. You know who is who and who to reach out to if you need help, if you have questions. That's always important. And oh yeah, and also make sure people have their full names in a Discord. Like I can't tell you how many times like I've been in a Discord and people don't have their full names in the chat and I don't know who it is. Because it's like Mochi 5967, I don't know, like something stupid like that. No, that's a good username, but I'm like, I don't know who you are. Like, so please change your names when you enter a Discord to have your full name so people know who you are. Anyways, side tangent. So example of a links channel. So links and guides. So this includes all links the crew could possibly need to do their job, categorizes links by type and step of the pipeline so that they're easy to navigate, contained to one channel at the top of the Discord server. So this is where, in this production, this is where they put their links and guides. You can do this on production or on stuff I've been a part of. We would do that sometimes, or on our Google Sheet, our production sheet. We would have a tab that has all those links and guides there for you. So you can do both or one or the other. Just make sure, especially as a producer, people know where to go to find those links. Yeah. And the Google Drive for Arcade. So this was how they organized it. So the drive is separated by each stage of the pipeline with only the most important documents not categorized. So the production sheet and film pitch. Let's see. Yes, yes. So as you can see, there's the pitch there and then the production sheet there. So those are like easy to find. And then every other folder is for pre-production, production, post-production, paperwork stuff, marketing stuff, Zooming stuff. So everything else goes after those things. And then there's probably more organizational. There's tons of more folders in those pre-production, production, post-production folders. But yeah, that's how they organized it. And this might look different if you're in iDrive or if you're in Dropbox or whatnot, depending if you're depending on what you're using. So, oh yeah, here's okay, good. We have a dive into the production folder. So again, we have the animatics, the animation, backgrounds, voice acting. So again, within each stage of production, there's different tabs separating those areas of production. So as you can see here in the in the animation folder, we have the different sequences here. So films are typically separated by sequence, which is a scene of a story. Each sequence was labeled by which shots fall under which sequences. And README has resources for each area of production, for animators, turnarounds, character expressions, etc. That's how they did it. And then arcade is just one example. Again, things can look different. Every film is different. You will have preferences for how you like to run things and how you like to organize things. This is just food for thought. And pictured left is Studio Heartbreak's production template, which can be found on APG's resources tab, Padlet. That will be linked later on in the slides. If you have not looked at that already, it's very, very useful. And you can find this in here to just see like, oh, how did they do it? What did they use? How'd they organize it? And yeah, so how do you get started? So figure some things out first. So what are the director's general goals for your film? Sitting down and having that conversation as a producer with a director. What mediums will your film be in? Do you plan to post your film right after completing it or taking on a festival track? How ambitious are you planning on being with your technique? What does the director want your art style to be, and what steps will that take to complete? That's always important. And if you're not sure how to answer the previous questions, you have to find films that are similar to the style that you're going for and research into their process. If you're a SCAD student and you see there's tons of people who are doing their own indie stuff they're always posted somewhere, either in the Montgomery building on the walls or in Discord channels or whatnot. And you can, if they're further along, you can ask them, how did you do this? How did you organize things? Just to research, do your research, talk to people, ask questions, yeah, to previous capstone directors or producers to get advice and see what worked for them. I'm sure they are very happy to share that with you. They'll even share there's tons of previous or current capstones production sheets in I think I have a whole Dropbox folder full of them. I'll probably put that in the Padlet later if it's not already in there, that you can use to look at and see how they did their organization. Reach out to people who worked on projects you admire on LinkedIn and ask to conduct a informational interview. So an informational interview. So this is a small tidbit here. I think in winter quarter, we will have a LinkedIn meeting. So be sure to join that. And we'll go more into talking to people on LinkedIn. But basically, to summarize, it's reaching out to folks and being very nice and very respectful and asking, I see that you've done this and I'm very interested in doing my project. Here's a little bit about it. Or whatever. Can we set up a small chat or a small Zoom meeting, like a hour-long Zoom meeting, 30-minute Zoom meeting, whatever, whenever you want to talk so I can ask some questions and we could talk. Tons of people are very willing to do that. And create vision boards to figure out a specific direction you want to take the film and plan out what it would take to achieve that. Vision boards are awesome. Open Canva. If you don't have Canva, get Canva and start just compiling a bunch of shiz. Or PureRef. PureRef's another one. Those are really good softwares. Or good softwares. Those are good, yeah, software, whatever. They're easy to use and they're good for compiling a vision. So if you're like, this is what I want the film to look like, and this is the vibe I want, and this is kind of some story ideas, and then you can if especially if it's like a whiteboard of ideas, basically, an endless whiteboard of ideas that you can start shuffling things together to kind of get your ideas. Again, it's all brainstorming, which is always helpful. So some general first steps that might be helpful. Find a template or setup from a scratch from a scratch production sheet. I spelled it wrong, but yeah. Just yeah. Pick one that's already like it's a pre-made one and go from there. Maybe just to see how that feels. If you don't want to set up your own first time, set up rough timelines for how long each step of the process might take or will take. Establish dedicated leads are excited about your project and motivated. Organize a system of communication on Discord. Not you don't have to use Discord, but a lot of people do. And figure out how you want to store and submit your assets. So Dropbox, Google Drive, iDrive. Ensure that there are guides as you go to help keep everyone on the same page for animation, cleanup guide, background guide, shape language, style guide, etc. Those are important. And production programs are typically used. So that would be Dropbox, fantastic for crews within SCAD, very user friendly and doesn't run out of storage. Google Drive and or Google Suite, great for you if you have folks helping outside of SCAD, but it does run out of storage and that can cost money. Notion, which is great for keeping databases and information handy. I used Notion for a long time for like not for like projects, but just for my own like tasks. And Notion's great. Notion's awesome. Discord, that's typically a standard for most films to establish communication outside of class, in-person events. That's not always for everyone. So yeah, it's just some examples and or some words. General tips for success. Make a plan and stick to it. If you're a freshman and a sophomore right now, for the best film possible, we advise waiting after you take some more classes in your collaborative classes, after you've met more people before you dive into that. If you're a freshman or sophomore right now and you're like, I have an idea, I have a urge to do something like to do an indie like film or whatever. Just yeah, you can just start brainstorming right now and keeping that somewhere as you grow and as you learn, as you meet more people, keep it under your wing and you never know. If you've been yeah, and you just keep working on something if you're that kind of person. That's not everyone, but you know, condense your idea down to its core to make your idea achievable. So a shorter film is more likely to be completed. Story is king. If your story isn't great, is your film worth making? Or is it even worth watching at the end? That's always a big thing, big tip right there. Get tons of feedback before starting production. So talk to other people, talk to professors, talk to whoever, reach out to people. Consider when you're done with your animatic, is this a story that you want to tell? Can we stick to our story without making changes past pre-production? Like we said before, that's a big one. Can we stick to it and are we going to be constantly changing it? And some more tips, always be open to feedback and look to improve your pipeline for your crew. If you can avoid it, especially if your runtime is over 1 to 2 minutes, do not overlap your producer role into artistic roles because that can be confusing sometimes. It can get, especially if you're a producer and you're doing two things at once. Put one foot in one world. Don't dive, don't, spread yourself too thin. If your critique cannot be typed out in 2 sentences or less, call with the artist and talk. Tone over text can also be easily misconstrued. Sometimes it's just easier to talk in person or call. Self-care is important. So take breaks, take a walk, exercise if you want. Keep a good sleep schedule and your health comes first in all things. Your health always comes first. Don't wear yourself out because that's how burnout happens. When people don't care for themselves, burnout comes quick for you and it's not fun. And have fun. Have fun what you're doing. Keep your passion for your project alive and have fun doing it. And yeah, and keep that motivation up for it. And before you got this, and before we end, I did want to kind of show, I totally forgot to do this earlier, but I want to show our for a 3D projects production sheet just real quick if I can find it here. Uh sorry guys. Like there we go. This is for my capstone. Shh, don't tell anyone. You didn't see this, but here's our production sheet. For this is for a full 3D project. And so here's our naming convention. We have a little naming convention area. We have a table of contents. We have important links here, or leads here. Oh my God, no, sorry. Meeting days, aspect ratio. We have like again, oh sorry. We have like a bunch of no. We have a bunch of stuff here for people to look at to understand how to label things, whatnot. We have the crew here, so we have everyone's emails, the pronouns, the role, name, personal email, phone number, birthday. That's also, so that's always important. So you know when to how and where to contact people. We have their guides here. So these are some. I made some of these guides here: style guide, tech guide, FileZilla guide. Um, here's our production schedule. So we've divvied it up by like weeks, and whatnot. As you can see here, yes, our weeks. Simulation tab, all that stuff. Those are my dunes. Oh my God. But yeah, so this is our little simulation for Houdini's tab. We have our assets here. Here's our assets, our little asset list. We have our shot list here. So we have our thumbnails, the sequence shot, animatic timestamp, frame start, frame end, thumbnails, description. We have the boards and whether they're locked or not, aspect ratio, difficulty, lens, camera movement, cube cut notes, um, a layout animator, layout status, the animator, animation, anim exported, export notes, sims needed, sims export, post difficulty. So that's just an example of how we set it up. Oh yeah, I didn't go over assets, but for assets, we have like the category, the item, thumbnail, file name, concept artist, concept status, the priority, modeler, oh, get over here. A modeler, model status, quality check, UV status, texture artist, texture status, the rigger, the rig status, and the completed asset. So that's how we set that. For cycles and poses, here we have the category, the cycle type, character, who's it signed to, the status of it, completed task, yeah, these are just for poses. Yeah, poses, cycles, which will help with later crowd simming. And then our proof of concept here, I should not show this, but it's okay, guys. You didn't see anything. We have our items, like, so this is what we needed for our proof of concept. We have our items, our thumbnails, file name. We kind of went over this already, but this is just for a capstone proof of concept tab. And then deliverables for our capstone. We just have a little thing for that, just for people to look at to know what we need by the end of which quarter. And then this is just small things because sometimes it gets confusing looking over an asset list and being like, who's working on what? So most of us just update this to be like, what are we working on right now? Yeah, which is so epic. So okay, so that is all for a 3D production sheet there. 4 hour capstone. Again, yours might not look like that, but that's just an example. So you have a 2D example and a 3D example. And here's some other resources to get started. So link to APG's resource Padlet, a link to previous SCAD student films. This is now updated by the lovely Dana. Hold Your Horses, Dana. If you haven't checked out the capstone Hold Your Horses, you should do it. She compiled a more updated list of SCAD student films to look over. Go to the production resources in the APG Discord. This Cartoon Brew article interviewing indie animation producers is helpful. And this article and guide for animation production by Meagle is really helpful too. And yeah, and for this quarter, we are all done with meetings, but keep an eye out for the upcoming dates for the winter quarter. And we're hoping to have a guest speaker from DreamWorks and Meta, which is awesome. So keep an eye out for that. And here is our other contacts and media, social media, so Instagram, Discord, Google, what am I talking about? Google Calendar. If you have not already gotten in our Discord or followed us on Instagram or whatnot, be sure to do it here. Yeah. And that is all for today. And again, I'll reiterate that this is all recorded and will be posted in the APG events channel in our Discord. And I'm also going to put the slides in for you guys to view if you want to click on these links later to follow those. Yeah. So that's all I have for today. And does anyone have any questions for me before we end today? Thank you so much, guys, for being here, by the way. You guys are awesome. Yes,
Um,
Athena. Oh, sorry.
so my name's Tristan. I'm a
Hi.
freshman, and
Mhm.
so as I'm producing I'm a producer. I'm the production manager on a larger indie series, and
Uh-huh.
um currently we're struggling with funding and trying to figure out weekly rates because obviously it's a really it's a bigger production, but we have a very small budget, and like
Okay.
so how would what's the best way to distribute like pay and monies? Like what would be an acceptable weekly salary for people?
Ooh, that's a hard one because in my experience, I have not been on a paid project before in my experience. I recommend, um, first of all, I will kind of want to talk to you more after I do more research, but for right now, I do recommend like reaching out to to other like people on LinkedIn or whatnot who have been a part of projects where they have to pay people to understand salary, or just doing your like yeah, like just like researching, like I'm sure you've already done this, but researching like yeah, like what is a what is good pay for this person that isn't like cheaping them
Mhm.
out,
Yeah.
and talking with those people too and like and everything I
Mhm.
think is always good.
Yeah.
Also just for I didn't know if you asked this, but like were you guys having trouble like marketing or something?
No, marketing's always been a constant work in progress, and like that production's posting consistently. So we're doing as much as we can on that side. Of course, it's gonna take time, but it's
Okay.
like we're trying to like hopefully like I think we're trying to get a Kickstarter set up for later, but
That's perfect. Yeah, Kickstarter is really helpful. Yes, honestly. And I've heard, I mean, some people, at least from what I've seen, some people like even go on Instagram and they buy ad space like on there too. I don't
mm,
know how much that costs, but I've seen
yeah.
people do that to promote their projects.
Mhm.
Which again, I don't know if you're interested in that at all, but I don't know if that would help with like getting people like, oh, this is cool.
Mhm.
Um, do you have an Instagram by any chance? I'd love to like talk to you more if I can do more research like
Yeah,
later
yeah.
on.
Um, yeah, my Instagram. Hold on.
Sorry, I don't mean to like out you on here to
No,
people be like, "What's
it's
your
fine.
Instagram?"
It's fine. It's good publicity for not only myself but like everything I'm doing working on. My
Yes.
Instagram is a multiverse master with master with an A at the end instead of ER.
Oh, I found it. Okay, awesome.
Yeah,
Sweet. Yes. No, I'd love to talk to you later more about that if I can do my own little research on that.
awesome, cool.
Because I've actually haven't like been part of, yeah, I haven't been part of a production where I'm like, I need to like divvy out like, financials and stuff like that. Because
Yeah.
it is a whole nother ball field. So I
Mhm.
completely understand that. But yeah,
Yeah,
thank you so much for being here and asking.
yeah, of course.
no, this is awesome. I
Mm.
love meeting all you guys and hearing what everyone's doing. It's so cool. It's like,
Yeah,
oh my gosh. That's great. Thank you.
yeah, of course.
And then we have Athena here. She asked, "What is the render farm? Also, why wouldn't we have access to it after graduation? I thought all SCAD resources were available for alumni as well." So the render farm is it is provided by SCAD, and if you look up SCM render farm, it'll be there. And basically, it's where you upload. So for a variety of softwares, you go onto iDrive. If you don't know what the iDrive is, let's do a little thing here. Sorry for everyone who's like sitting here and they're like, oh my gosh, we're about to have another presentation. No, I'm joking. But you can go to MySCAD. Give me a second, Athena. You go to MySCAD. I'm gonna click this real quick. Oh boy. Oh no. I don't think anyone's seeing my stuff because it's a fingerprint one, but oh boy. Okay, good. Nobody's seeing it. Nobody's seeing my login. Okay. Come on, come on, come on. So you log into MySCAD. You go to resources here. No, I don't want to access voice files. You go to resources, you go over here, click this right here, My Drive. Click it. This will take you. Okay, come on, load. Load. Come on. Come on, baby. Oh my gosh. Give it a second. It's loading. Okay, cool. Uh, so if you go here, so it will take you here. Click Savannah, since we're the Savannah campus, unless you're Atlanta or you're online. Click Savannah. And then here is where this is called the SDM render farm. This file right here, this folder right here. You double click it, and this is where you will put in, ignore these. These are all this is my stuff. But you will put in a Maya file or a Maya project or Houdini project, whatever. I'm gonna guess most people use Maya here. So you put in your Maya project, and then you go and then you will have, so all your stuff will be here. So then you go to STM render farm. You click this here. Again, have these two tabs open. You click this here, so it says getting started. There is a whole sorry, I know I'm rambling. This is a bit of a ramble here. Thank you guys for staying and listening to me. But I will provide this later actually. With after I post the slides from today, I'm going to post a whole tutorial on how to use the render farm because not a lot of people, some people don't use, I learned how to use it my first year, but some teachers do not let their students use it. I don't know why. But so you click start rendering. Oh my God. So this is like a little tutorial here, and this is where your render jobs will be. So to submit a job, which is to submit something to be rendered, you click here. And because you put your Maya project in the SDM render farm thing, it will show up here and it will be, and then you can pick which scene do I want to render from. So which scene do I have the render settings and everything set up from? And you will click that and then you'll select and then you'll put in your frame range. You can only do 250 frames per job. So you put in whatever frame range you have. If you have more than 250 frames, you have to do you have to like disperse. You have to do 250 and then however many left you have afterwards and so on. And you put the version that you're using in Maya, the render you're using. Most people use Arnold. So whatever you're using to render in Redshift, whatever, typically Arnold for most sophomores, freshmen, and freshmen, whatever. And then pretty much you can ignore the rest of these things. I have not been in a scenario where I need to answer the rest of this stuff. So ignore that stuff and you click render and then you'll see it show up. I'm not going to render anything, but it will show up here and it will say either it will say you're waiting in line because other people have submitted something and you have to wait in line. But then once it's done, it will be once those people's jobs are finished, once their stuff is rendered, yours will say rendering and you have to wait until it says complete, like here. And then you will go back to your My Drive and it will show up and it will be titled like job underscore and a bunch of numbers. And that is where all your rendered PNGs or whatnot are in. Ignore logs, but all your rendered I don't know why this one only has two, but whatever. It will be a bunch of PNGs. If you have like 250 frames, it will be all 250 frames are here. And then you take that into Premiere and you make it a video, whatever you do with it afterwards. So that's a very quick tutorial. I will have a full page that you can read from later in the server. If you want to learn that later. That's just a side tangent. So thank you for listening. But I will explain. I'm pretty sure that after you graduate, you do not have access to the render farm. Give me a second. We're gonna Google this. After I graduate SCAD, do I have access to SCM? Let's see. Because hold up. Render farm. Hold up. Hold up, y'all. Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, so once you graduate, you don't have access to it anymore. Which is a shame, but so be sure to if you're like, if you're here, don't render. I mean, unless it's a very, very small project. But if you want to maximize your time, or optimize your time, don't Wait, can you guys see? Oh shit. Oh my God. No. I'm so sorry, guys. It was still sharing this. That's so annoying. Um, hold up. I'm sorry, guys. That's so embarrassing. Hold up. Should I do, is anyone here want me to go over that again while they can see? Because I'm literally willing to sit here and go over it again if you guys want to. Tell me in the chat right now. Does anyone want me to explain the render farm again? Because I will do it. I do not mind. And yeah, anyone who doesn't want me to answer, you don't even you can totally not you do not have to stay. Thank you very much for coming though. Thank you very much, guys. Let's see. Okay, I don't see anyone. Okay, cool. So the two websites you need, can everyone see the screen? Can you see the screen, Athena? Okay, good. Let's see. Um, you go to MySCAD, you click so you log into MySCAD, it'll take you home, and you click the resources tab here, and then you go over here and you click My Drive, and then you open My Drive, and this is where you're gonna put this is what will show up when you click that. Hold up. Wait for it to load. Bum, bum. And this is what you'll see. And then you click Savannah, and then you go to STM render farm here. And this is where you're going to throw in your Maya project folder into here. So then when you go over, when you look up SCAD render farm, just look that up and you click this, it'll take you here and you click start rendering. There's a bunch of tutorial stuff here too. And again, I'll post that tutorial later. You go over to submit job and that's where you're going to find the scene that you want to render from. That's from that project that you put into your My Drive. And you'll click that, whatever. You'll click select. You will go to, you will put in your frame range. Again, as we said before, you'll click start rendering. And then the dashboard is where you're going to see how long you have to wait in a queue for other people's renders to be done. And then you'll see your status of when yours is complete or not complete yet. Yeah, and again, sorry that you couldn't see it for the first time. I'm sorry about that, guys. Zoom is not always fun. But again, I will post a tutorial, a whole tutorial thing later, a tutorial like page document, a document. Um, and yeah, let's see. Do we have any, what am I doing? Oh my goodness. I feel like a baby when it comes to Zoom sometimes, but you know, where how do I pull up the fucking oh, sorry, didn't mean to curse y'all. How did I pull up the chat again? Oh my gosh. Dude, this is so sad, y'all. I can't even okay, there we go. Okay, there we go. Sorry, guys. Okay. So, the next question. So yeah, you do not have access to that once you graduate, unfortunately. So use your resources wisely while you are here. This might be totally out of left field, but how did it take 85 people a year to make 8 minutes? I'm scared about waiting so long. This was so 85 pe people a year to make 8 minutes. So 85 people, what I'm guessing, I was not part of Arcade, but what I'm guessing is that 85 people were not there all year. It was probably like the first half or the first amount of time, there was 30 minutes of, or there was 30 people who worked on it. And then for another couple of months, there was only 30 other people. Other people had other things they needed to do. Only 30 more people were working on it, and so on. A lot of people come in and out of indie projects, especially when you're not getting paid and you don't have the time. If you're like, hey, I have a job lined up. I love your project, but I can't work on it. I need to go do something else. Those people will leave. They still technically get the credit of I worked on this, but they need to leave, and then you usher and you get more, you recruit more people in. So that's what I believe is what happened there. So sometimes you'll see, oh, like that 85 people were on this for a year and it's 8 minutes. It took a year to make 8 minutes. So it's not always 85 people were there at the very start. And also, who knows, 85 people, who knows how many people were for which role or assignment. It's again, it's all different. And an indie project can it's I know a lot of people are very How to explain this? I know a lot of people want to make long projects. They're very ambitious and they want to make 10-minute long, whatever, like who's eating, whatever. Unless you're very popular on social media or whatnot and you have a really good standing already. But if you're starting from the bottom, I would say make your indie project short. Make a short, manageable thing that you can produce and that you can make that won't take you ages. So you gain that experience, you have a finished product, and you're not pulling your hair out. Like when I think of like people who are able to achieve like really long project, like especially like 2D projects, like a really long 2D project, like over 10 minutes or so, I think of Vivzy Pop. I'm not a big fan of Hazbin Hotel, but I followed her work and she was very, at least when I was young, she was very popular on social media and she had a lot of attention and she was able to garner a lot of artists to work on her things for better or for worse. And if you don't have that from the beginning, it will be harder. So that's why it is advised to start smaller if you don't have a bunch of people, if you're not sure if you can get a lot of people to be on your project. Um, and then so that's my 2 cents on that. And unfortunately, with how things go, sometimes projects take a long time. You really don't know, especially if you're like in school right now and you start an indie project. Sometimes you're gonna have to, especially if a lot of everyone else is a student at SCAD who's working on it, you will have to take breaks. So like for the 2D project, the indie project I'm producing for, we had to stop this quarter because all of us are doing capstone right now and all of us need to focus on capstone. So we had to take a break. And so that again, it takes longer to finish things. But yeah, that's my 2 cents on that. So yeah, thank you guys. Does anyone have any other questions or um before we head out today? Cool. Okay, okay, okay. Very good, very good. Let's see. Okay, guys. Well, if that's all for today, thank you very much for coming, and I hope you guys had a good Halloween tomorrow, and your tomorrow, yesterday, and I hope everything goes well for the last couple weeks of fall quarter, and